If you are interested in making stained glass but don't know where to start, I am starting a stained glass series. In this first video, I'm going over the supplies and tools you will need. Let's start with glass. You can see if there are any suppliers in your area. I buy most of my glass from Hobby Lobby, but you can also shop online. Anything in stained glass and Delphi glass are great options if you need to order supplies. I'll also have everything that I'm talking about linked in the description. For glass cutting, I recommend a waffle grid mat. You cut glass on it and it will catch tiny pieces of glass, and it also helps to keep the mess contained. You can also attach additional mats to create a larger surface to work on. Make sure to always wear safety glasses when cutting glass. You will need a glass cutter. So this doesn't actually cut the glass, but what it does is it scores the surface, creating a weak point. This specific one is a pencil grip. It's really nice quality, and it also came with different scoring blades if you're working with thicker or thinner glass. When it comes to actually breaking the glass, you will use running pliers. These have a curved mouth, and you just line this mark up with your score line and apply even pressure to break the glass. These are grozing pliers. The curved part is used for grozing off bits of glass, and they are good for breaking off smaller pieces of glass. So these are all the tools you'll need for glass cutting. The next thing you'll need is a glass grinder. This step is important for smoothing the edges of the glass and shaping them so they fit together as closely as possible. Grinding the edges also makes it so that the copper foil will adhere properly. This specific grinder has a special bit that will pull water up when grinding. Otherwise, you would have to use a sponge to keep it wet. Make sure you are always grinding glass with enough water. It not only cools the bit, but it also cools the glass to prevent any breakage, and most importantly, contains the dust that it creates. During this step, I wear safety glasses and gloves. These are nitrile disposable gloves, and I just wear them to keep water off my hands. Next, you will need copper foil. The foil is important because without it, the solder has nothing to stick to. When choosing foil, pay attention to the size and the backing color. The first one I ever used was 3/16, so it's pretty thin, and I would not recommend this one for beginners. It's a little more difficult to apply evenly. Here you can see that the backing color is copper, but there's also silver and black. The color is important if you are using transparent glass, because the foil will show through if it's not the same color. If you are using patina to change the color of the solder, you would use either copper-backed or black-backed foil to match. The foil I use now is 7/32, and it's silver-backed because I just leave the solder silver, I don't use patina. I started out with the Studio Pro brand, but recently switched to Edco. It's a little bit stickier, so it adheres to the glass better, and I haven't seen any lifting. And that can happen if you aren't using a good quality foil. But honestly, using the Studio Pro is good for beginners, so I would recommend it for if you're just starting out. You will need a burnishing tool to smooth the foil over the glass. I just use the end of a paintbrush and that works for me. You'll also need an X-Acto knife and scissors to trim the foil. And those are the supplies needed for copper foiling. Let's move on to supplies needed for soldering. You will need a surface to solder on. I like to use this piece of corkboard. Solder, specifically 60-40. There are other types, but I have not worked with them. I've only used this one. A soldering iron. This one is the Hako FX601, and I definitely recommend this one as you can control the temperature, which is very helpful with getting smooth solder lines. I recommend getting some tip tinner. It cleans the iron tip and it also coats the iron in a thin layer of metal, which is important because you don't want the iron heating up itself. You want it to heat up the thin layer of metal, which will then melt the solder. So it not only cleans the iron, but helps it last longer, and you shouldn't have to buy a new one for a long time. You will need flux. This cleans the copper foil and will help the solder flow smoothly. This one is a liquid flux, but there's also gel and paste. Get some cheap brushes to apply the flux, and I use a glass jar to pour a little bit into to use. For safety, I wear glasses, a mask, and gloves. Make sure to always solder in a well-ventilated area. Open windows if you can and use a fan. You can also invest in a respirator and a fume extractor as well. You want to avoid breathing in the fumes from the flux as much as possible. When it comes to hanging the finished piece, I use pre-tinned copper wire to make my jump rings. Whatever you decide to use, just make sure it's the right metal because not all metals are solderable. And this is the chain that I use, but you can, of course, pick whatever hanging material you would like. So these are all the basic supplies. Let me know what other videos you would like to see. And if you have any questions at all, just leave them in the comments.